All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. That's right, for the Men in Blazers Media Network, we are here with the one you've all been waiting for. Part one of Keep, Sell, Loan 2024-2025 edition as we look ahead to next season. So part one, as most of you will know, is going to be goalkeepers and defenders. The next part will be midfielders and attackers. So don't be surprised when we cut halfway through the squad. We got to take our time on these. But look, Nick, we've been doing this. This is what I think our 9th season doing this. Often imitated, never duplicated. But this is a fun one for us and definitely for the listeners out there.
Yeah, look, I mean, there are a lot of editions of this out there now. We're happy to be the one that you've been waiting for. And look, we also wanted to wait and see if the manager was going to be announced. And we can now say with a fair amount of certainty after David Ornstein's tweet today that Enzo Maresca will be the new manager through however much time he survives at Chelsea Football Club. They say 5 years, but really it's like an 8-month contract with a 4-year and 4-month sort of option, Dan. So we have a manager set us up for what we're going to get into.
Well, it's a good reminder that we try to take a approach of walking out of Keep Sell Loan with a 25-man Premier League team roster. Now, that 25 is also allowed to have a couple of free or vacant spots for us because we know Chelsea are going to go into the transfer window, and that is how we construct our squad. You also have to think about the fact that 8 of those 25 have to be homegrown as well. So we add some more construct or constrictions, a little rigor around our requirements. We don't just get to vote like the listeners do. And thank you to the hundreds of you that voted and gave us your perspective on it. At the end of the day, we need to walk away with the squad. You didn't have to in your ballot. So, that's why we also get, I think, Brandon, the privilege of adding some context to our answers, which we don't give the listeners in the polls. So, that's the trade-off.
Yeah, 100%. So this is going to be good. We're going to end up with a squad at the end of part 2. So like I said, make sure to follow this all the way through to the end to see what our final squads and needs are. But before we get into it, obviously a huge shout out to our amazing community. Dan just said, those of you who got into the Google Forms and gave us your opinions, those of you who did it as well, on the end of season awards. Like, we massively appreciate you. We love the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify because it helps us be found by new Chelsea fans. When you subscribe on YouTube, we're now well over 31,000 of you, which we appreciate. Road to 50K is where we're at. And then if you're looking for written content, which is not my forte, hey, we got a weekly newsletter. All right. Sam, CFC Central, is pumping those out, which are fantastic, as you would imagine. And then lastly, a couple bucks. You can join the best Chelsea community out there on our Discord. So look, a lot coming at you this week. Part 2, stay locked in. But let's kick it off. I mean, I almost don't even need to say it, guys, but with the best athletes.
The most important position
on the field.
The most important position on the field?
Best we go again. Athletes on the field. Most likely to be 2-sport athletes, easily, I would say. But look, We've got 5 to cover on this one. Petrovic, Sanchez, Bettinelli, Kepa, and Slanina, a couple names you haven't thought about in a while. So Dan, 605 responses, 92% said keep Jorge, but that's not what you think.
So I think this is gonna bring controversy in right at the top.
Whoa.
I went with sell, and I think this gets to the fact that I think you're gonna upgrade the goalkeeper position this summer. We're gonna go back into the market for a new goalkeeper, and I think there is more market for someone like Petrovic and there is for Sanchez. And I think you don't have to sell him for too much to record a profit on him as a player sale. So I don't think he's going to be number 1. I don't think Sanchez is going to be number 1. You're going to sign somebody new for number 1. And yeah, I would try to find the one that you actually can use as an upgrade. And you're probably going to sign someone who's not homegrown. And so, like, if you kept Petrovic and you kept that new person and you had 2 of your foreign spots used for goalkeepers, come on.
Dan, I'm not worried about that at all with the goalkeeper group. And let me tell you something. I think we signed Petrovic for 12.5 million, something like that. We signed Sanchez for
25. Yeah.
Something. So the difference in what you're getting off the books or what someone would potentially pay for a goalkeeper is not much. It's not going to save you a whole lot of money. if you're putting together the best squad, he's in it, whether he's the starter or the backup. And that is really dependent on the goalkeeper market, which is going to be wild this summer. We've already seen a couple of rumored targets. We already know that Enzo Maresca likes to play with a goalkeeper that's a little bit more like Ederson than maybe Petrovic is, but we'll save that analysis for a CFC Central special someday. If you are building your best squad, Petrovic is a better keeper than Sanchez. That's why he is staying in my squad. And again, I think the nominal difference in fee that you would get for him versus Sanchez just doesn't move me at all, Brandon.
Yeah, it's a keep for me, and that's because he's better of the two, and we've only cracked him. He's your incumbent. When we go to Sanchez, and this is where I will differ with Dan, is that out
Yep.
of the responses we had, 85.5 want to sell. And here's where I'm at. You talk about a market, Dan. Ipswich are coming up, right? They've got a 33-year-old starter. Southampton, they've got it's McAllister, whoever the England guy is, but they don't really have much behind them. A couple young guns. Don't forget, Nottingham Forest love buying players for fun. And you know what? The best one I think here, which would be the best fit, would be Brentford. I think Robert Sanchez would be a fit for Brentford coming out of that Brighton system. So to me, I think there's a market. I don't think you need him. I think you tried it. The problem is, though, on all these players that we're signing, you see on a 5-year deal. Like the problem for me, Nick, is that Sanchez, why does he need to move? He's at Chelsea. He's playing in Europe on a 5-year contract. I think to me, that's going to be the bigger issue with some of these players.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to sell one of the two, I would argue that maybe like just skill wise, like there's not a huge gap between them, but I would argue that maybe Petrovic is the better system fit. I know that Sanchez maybe had a higher passing percentage out of the back, but I think it's hard to really grade last year because we played so differently than what we're going to play this year. And so I just, if he's going to, if he's going to throw a shit fit because he's not going to be the starter, and right now I would view him as like number 3, like you're not going to keep him over Bettinelli because Betts is like, just he's going to be a new hero of whatever cup we win this year.
Rob Green.
Yeah, like Rob Green, the hero of Baku. So I just think it's probably best for all parties to move on. I think some of those targets are really interesting that Brandon had.
I don't foresee a world where you're going to get him to agree to a move and then find a club who's going to make Chelsea happy in terms of the fee that we receive in return. Like I'm trying to operate in a pseudo realm of reality where he is more likely difficult to sell than Petrovic. And so like in my mind, neither of them are your first choice keeper next season. Like someone else is your starting keeper for Chelsea next season. And in that scenario, if I'm trying to figure out how to build the best squad size and like try to get all of these cards to build a house together, I think you keep him because he's going to be more difficult to try to get out of this team.
I'd strong disagree on this. Like Dan, he's not playing.
Sure.
He's gonna want to move before Petrovic. Petrovic is digging in his heels. He's the incumbent number 1. Rob Sanchez, he's gonna want to go again to find his new home. If it's not at Chelsea, he's gonna want to keep looking to play. By the way, the fee was only 25 million. Amortize it, a few down. Like you're telling me we can't sell him for 25 again and like make a couple million off it. I think he's going to be far easier because he's Premier League proven. He's just a year
That's
out, and it's because of an injury.
that's what I think too. I mean, if you were one of these clubs coming up, or you're a club that goes through, and I think like the most likely scenario here, if I'm trying to like form the thought exercise that gets Sanchez out of the third choice goalkeeper role, is club suffers a goalkeeper injury in preseason, right? And is scrambling, and they know that he's gettable, maybe on a loan with an obligation to buy. That could be another way to potentially move that. So
I mean, that's exactly what happened with Kepa this last season.
yeah, except that obligation, that
But the idea
little phrase
of an injury at the beginning, right? And then that moved him out late, for sure.
Yeah.
So just to, and these are from capology.com, so they're not like the most concrete numbers, but they're as close as you're going to get. Sanchez is on 60,000 pounds a week, 3.12 million pounds per year in terms of total like salary. And then his book value left is 21.8. Petrovic is on 25,000 pounds a week, 1.3 million per year, and's got 9.1 million book value for his fee. Like, just to say, if you could sell Petrovic for 15, or if you sell Sanchez for 22, 23, I'm just thinking about, oh, I could get 4 to 5 million additional in the bucket for, and also keep other players. I might do that. That's also what I'm thinking
I
too.
mean, don't you think that's negligible with the size of our wage bill? A few million and for a better player.
Oh. We're going to talk about a lot of players who might become cap casualties. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to GM it as much as I can.
No, I just don't think the value is different, but that's fine. The interesting twist to this team is that Kepa is coming back, as we just said. So again, 95% sell. We are all agreed. Um, Here's the plot twist. Let's say you move Sanchez out, but you don't find that goalkeeper that I think that they're gonna want to be looking for, but they maybe feel they can next season. I could see them bringing Kep in as a backup and just riding that out to the end of the season, to give them time to find someone else. Again, I think the hard part is with all of these new managerial staff again, and turnover with things, and like the profiles changing. I just wonder if, how, depending on how many signings they need to make this summer, if they're going to be able to get through all of those things. But that's definitely like last case scenario for everybody. And I also, though, to be fair, Dan, don't know if, again, his attitude and all these things would even make it worthwhile having around. I could just, for some reason, seeing our sporting directors just do that.
Do the counterintuitive thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Do I mean, he's on the last of his 7-year deal, and you need to book about 15 million from him, dollars, not pounds or euros, to zero out the amount that he would be as a hit for next year. And so, like, you don't need to. It doesn't need to take much at this point to get Kepa gone, and like that is something you should do. I don't think it's your highest priority action, but it is a part of your priority actions, because otherwise you're going to start the season with 4 senior goalkeepers just chilling out, wondering who gets to take the coffee run for everybody.
Yeah, it's time. I mean, this should have been done 2 or 3 years ago minimum, and this is the cautionary tale of what a 7-year deal for a player who wasn't good enough to cut it means. I mean, one final note on Kepa: he's not as good as his feet as the other two that we have. So, that was supposed to be his number one trait. And if you look at those numbers, it ain't good. So I don't see this working. You can't afford to hold him. Sell him to someone in Spain, remove him from the books, and be done with it.
Another one that is a great locker room ad as well. Now, maybe the first one that we have really is Betts, right? Mark Spettinelli, 82% say keep him. He's English, fits the homegrown slot, um, seems to be capable enough, right? If needed. Thankfully, it hasn't been, and is very content with his lifestyle. So, again, I don't think there's much else here. I love Betts, love the cappuccinos on tour, and hope he can get some preseason minutes just to show what he's got.
Hero of Warsaw? Question mark.
Say what?
I said Hero of Warsaw. Isn't that where the
Potential, right? Yeah,
conference
the
final is?
potential, right? Yeah. It's Willie Caballero coming back. All right, you got me going down a path I don't necessarily want to go right now. But one I think that is still up in the air is Slanina, right? As we can see on Instagram, dude is living it up right now in the offseason. 602 responses, 88% say loan. I mean, Nick, he unfortunately did not have a loan that really gave us a better understanding of who we have on our roster.
Yeah, I find this one hard to see him breaking through at Chelsea now. I mean, you have to remember when he was signed, he was the new hot commodity. Like we were battling Real Madrid for his signature and all this sort of stuff. And I think if he had gone on a loan that really had him in a position to battle at even a championship level, I could see it. But right now, I just don't understand how he breaks through, especially if we go sign another goalkeeper. It just doesn't make sense. So I think it's probably some sort of good loan with an obligation to buy at the end of it, and just unfortunately not exactly what we had hoped.
It was a rough end in terms of getting relegated
Yeah,
out of the top Belgian league with the team who's at UPenn. And he did feature in 28 out of 28 matches that he got an opportunity to participate in, just around 2,500 minutes, 67% save percentage. You have to look for an upgraded loan next year. I mean, in some way, shape, or form for him to continue his development, and then figure out what you have a season from now. Did your goalkeeper you purchased panned out? Does your second choice still make sense? Like, I think you want to keep the door open for Slonina next season based upon what happens with whomever comes in and what our second choice situation is.
You got to remember, 20. He's not even breaking through the U.S. men's national team camp either, right? So he's not in the top three there. Again, he is just more you need to see. But 20 from a goalkeeper is like young.
so
All
young.
right. Like
Yeah.
the good news is he has time to develop. But again, I think the hype train has heavily cooled. So we're all like, yeah, we need a loan because we have to see what he's got. So it's the jury's just really out on Slonina, and we'll have to see. Um, yeah, I think we're gonna leave it there. So that's a roundup of the best goalkeepers. I think we should just round it real quick with who we've got and kind of how our team looks like. So, um, Dan, you have the craziest. So let's go ahead and let you kick this off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dan.
Well, so I think we'll sign a new first choice keeper. So if we've got three spots, right? I think the first spot's vacant, ready for somebody new to come in. I think Robert Sanchez is probably your second choice keeper, and then you have Marcus Bettinelli as your third choice, and that means you've sent Slonina on loan, you've sold Kepa, and then you've likely sold Petrovic as well.
Do you think they might even cancel Kepa's contract like we've seen with like a Ross Barkley and things?
It's just expensive. Like we're taking L's in our books right
Well,
now, and we need to not do that. So I think there's some. I mean, look, you automatically get the wages off the book, right? You will not be responsible for the wages. So all you're really worried about at this point is getting off his amortized fee for the final year, because someone else would then take care of the wages.
anyways, yeah, it's something to think about. I mean, they played that, but to your point, on far smaller contracts. Nick, what about you?
I am. I'm not done with Petrovic as number one yet. I'm really intrigued to see what options there are from a goalkeeper perspective out there, and if he can fit this Maresca play out of the back system and or not. So I think that's a still TBD. So Petrovic and or new transfer at number one, Petrovic and or new transfer at number two, and Betts at number three.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. That's exactly how I'm playing it. So, let Petrovic. He's earned it. He'll be the number one until someone else takes it off him. Bring in a new goalkeeper, and then good old Betts rounding it off. So that's our goalkeepers. Going to take an ad break. So when we get back, we're jumping into the defenders. So plenty more action to come. And you thank the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, so coming out of the break, we've got the defenders, and pretty much ready to fly. Dan, is Naz with the hot update on potentially the first signing of the summer.
Yeah, we'll take this into consideration that one Tosin the Giant from Fulham looks likely to be joining off of a free transfer to Chelsea. So definitely big shoes to fill, or at least a big aura to fill, as relates to free transfer defenders coming into Chelsea on the back of Thiago Silva leaving. But very, very cool to see that we are trying to get some work done. And going after a center back, Nick, that is above both Brandon's height, my height, and even your height, as it comes to just someone who's tall in that center back grouping.
Yeah, I think 6'5". He's not a small
6'4"
man.
plus.
6'4" plus, fair enough. Yeah, this is it's an interesting one. I mean, we were hovering around Fulham for most of last season, so I'm not sure how much of an upgrade this is potentially, or if it's mostly a kind of squad fill role. I think that's going to be fascinating to see. There's some really positive stuff, about him out there, and just have to see how he adapts to life at Chelsea. But at least he doesn't have to move flat. I mean, he's just going to be able to stay right there, nestled in an SW6.
Again, you have to love it. Set piece coach says they need someone tall, so they literally go sign one of the tallest defenders out there. Let's hope he can do the rest of the bits that goes with the job. But the first one that we're gonna talk look at is Academy product Joshua Akimpong, and the majority of the people, as you might imagine, are saying loan, right? A decent chunk said keep. So I think this is pretty interesting. I think for us, it's really a matter of he did get his debut under Potts, right? Played the 6 minutes in the Premier League, I believe, against Tottenham, as we looked to kill that one out. Good defender for sure. Obviously, Phil quite happy with what he does in the academy and things like that. But based on where we're at and where our needs are, I don't think any of us really see it, Nick, for him being able to jump in and essentially fill a role that's needed.
Now, this is one I said in my note here, do the Reece James path. So do a championship loan and really exceed at that championship loan and come away from that better than you were before. Easier said than done. Championship is a really difficult league, a very physical league, but he's also a very physical guy. I mean, I think when he came on, we were all like, "Oh God, this dude's huge." he's quick and he's physical. So that's exactly what I would do with him. Like if you the sporting structure see a future for this guy at the club, the best thing you can do is really put him to the test now. I mean, make sure that he has the metal to take it on because it only gets harder from there.
Yeah, it's a loan spot, loan opportunity, and I think the idea of seeing if he can get into a championship side sounds like a great pathway for the upcoming season. Remember, they play more games than the Premier League does in terms of the season, so you can very easily get over 3,000 minutes if you become a starter in a championship side, which would be phenomenal for him in terms of a next step in his development. And then that gives you the opportunity in the later years to determine, is he someone that you see as a part of the Chelsea first team, a part of the Chelsea reserves, or someone who is potentially, a sellable asset, right? Because again, we love the story of people getting promoted from the academy into the first team. That is not every individual. And so you have to pick and choose the ones you're going to champion and be with the side a little bit longer as well.
So another academy is Alfie Gilchrist. 87% saying loan. Here's where I get a little bit tricky, Nick, with Alfie is with the injuries on Reese. And I have this another version of this for my left back spot. So like Alfie is the perfect player to be depth for Gusto if we need. The problem is, do we need him or not? So we all want him to go on loan, but it's almost like you have to wait until later in the window to feel good about where Reese is at after watching him through preseason to send him. And that could extremely limit where he has to go. So this is where you're in that really like bad situation of not knowing really where your starter's health is going to be with Reece James and seeing where is the best place for Alfie. Because odds are you send him out, Reece James goes down the first, match of the season. Well, shit, he would have been the perfect fill.
Yeah, but I think system wise, like I don't know if he's Maresca's system ready. I think is where my head was at with this one. Like I don't see him as like a pure passing center back. And obviously as an undersized center back slash right back or whatever you want to do with him. That could be really tricky. I would like to see him go on a loan where he could learn that style a little bit more in a lower pressure environment because like as a human being and as a future leader of Chelsea Football Club, like he already has that. Like we're already good with him there. I think it's an undersized guy though, like Thiago Silva was a little undersized. Like he's really going to have to do the other stuff well, Dan, to make it here and make it here for like the long term.
He is 6 foot. So just for anyone who's wondering what does undersized mean, 6 foot, I guess compared to Tosin is absolutely undersized. But maybe some of other defenders we've had previously who've basically been 5'11" and
Yeah.
a roundup. I mean, he definitely is above that. So look, I think Alfie needs minutes, and the challenge is you actually might play. And this was the number that you look at. CFC Daily put out the post of just how many games we potentially could play if you got to the final in every competition Chelsea are in next season, somewhere between 70 to 72 matches. And that's the case, you might want to keep someone like Alfie around if you could say, hey, we're going to get him 1,000 to 1,500 minutes, and he's going to be one of the 2 to 3 academy players that we're going to prioritize some engagement with. In the absence of that, I say loan. And I think that is, more about getting about double those minutes in the championship next season. That's what the reporting indicated. And I think that there's enough defenders, unfortunately, at this moment in areas where you would potentially want to use him either in center back or in right back for him to have an easy pathway to those minutes. But I do like your call out, Brandon, that if there is some fitness question marks, that he could get be on the move for a loan during the summer, and something happens and he just becomes a part of the first team squad again.
Oh, look, yeah. Well, we'll have to see. I also think he needs to take a page out of Lewis Hall's book and maybe transition to right back. Right. And if that's, I think he's got a way better chance of making it as a right back than the center back in the Premier League. But we'll see. I sure as hell wouldn't bet against Alfie Gilchrist in about anything in life.
No.
It does time to Reece James, though, who's next up with a 98% keep, right? No surprises here. We're all aligned on the keep train, but we've just said the problem is fitness. Like, how much can we have our captain and one of our best players around? I mean, he's world class when he's healthy. The problem, Nick, is we haven't seen world class. We saw glimpses even in the few minutes he played at the end of the season where he'd go on and get assists right away or things like that. But like having hundreds of minutes and recurring, injury issues is a problem. And I don't think we're on the other side of it yet.
I think if my math is right, since the injury in 2022 or 2021, I should say, since that injury, the knee injury, he's played 36 total matches in 3 years. So that sucks, obviously.
Just managing his minutes.
Yeah, I mean, look, you need to manage him. He's not an everyday starter until he proves he's an everyday starter, right? And like that's weird to say about a guy who is the captain of the football club and undoubtedly one of our great talents, one of the greatest talents that has ever come through the academy. He's tremendous when he's available. And so I'm just assuming with this analysis that he's going to be available for 75% plus of matches this year. It's a big assumption, but my thing is more intangible. I really need to see him step up as the captain if he's going to be available. I need to see him cut out the silly reds. I need to see him adapt the play style to whatever he's being asked to do. I need to see him do more of the public appearance captainy stuff. It's the job, and he knew the job when he was asked to do it. So all those things, like water under the bridge, the injury record, Dan, I hope he could stay healthy, but I need to see some of the intangibles step up.
Well, look, you'll get to see him in the 4th match week in the Premier League season after he completes the ban that he has from receiving 2 red cards within a season. So already helping out his load management by picking up a red card at the end of last season. Again, next level thinking from Reece James in this moment. Man. Even though as we joke about it, I do think that is going to be the biggest thing, is to bring him back in and make sure that you are good with the amount of minutes he's getting. To your point, Nick, over the last 2 seasons, he has had 35 match appearances. He had 39 3 seasons ago. He had 47 the season before that. And so we've seen 39 to 24 to 11, 28, almost 2,900 minutes to just under 2,000 minutes to 479 minutes. Like, we have not seen Reece James, and you cannot necessarily rely upon him at this moment. And so I think it is a very much precarious situation that you find yourself in. And I just don't think, again, there's not going to necessarily be buyers when a player doesn't go out and play and perform. And so this idea that Reece James has a ton of market value right now does not exist. And like, you are hoping that that is not even something you have to consider, because he comes back into the pitch and balls out for Chelsea next season and is giving us somewhere in that range of 40 plus matches next season where he can participate at a very, very high level.
Well, the math was done too, Brandon, that like if we go to the maximum of every competition next season at 70 matches, I think 70 total, all the Premier League games, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, and then the Conference League, which is 16 or 18, depending on if you have to
13 to
qualify.
15.
Okay, so yeah, not maybe as many, but like, so if we assume in Chelsea Football Club we're going to go as far as we can at all points, like he's going to end up putting a lot of tread on the tires next year, and that should be a good thing because he really hasn't the last 3 years.
Well, it can be, right? And I think this is where, as we get to Ben Chilwell too, is I think we might have to carry a third outside, a third fullback on either side, right? And I think that's the concern. Ben Chilwell's here. You got 44% of the people saying, "Hey, it's time to sell," right? I say,
And I'm
I
there.
say, I say keep. Dan says keep. Nick, I know you're different, but I think now you start to weigh the difference of, does it make sense to have three right backs or right back available players, not including Trevo or Disasi sliding out to play there, or Levi Cole sliding out to play left back, for other reasons. Ben Chilwell is the best left back we have, but the fitness is a problem. So Dan, I guess, where you're at, vice captain, captain, chronic injuries.
Same thing with Reese. I think that you're likely moving off of, if you could, one of Chilwell or Kukurea this summer would likely be a scenario, though there are pros and cons with each of those moves. I think if you had a decent offer for him, you could see him leave. I mean, he's under contract until 2026, 27. So that means, by he would be a free agent on the 27, 28 year. So you do have some time. He would be one of the higher earners because he would have come in under the previous regime's structure and not necessarily under the current regime's compensation structure. So like that is something, again, if we think about the way that our sporting directors have operated, it has been to try to migrate out some of the more expensive contracts that we have. Though he's not making that much more than Kukurea and is not as, there's the difference between the two. I would say is probably similar actually to the Petrovic Sanchez situation. So, I mean, pick your poison. I would keep Ben Chilwell personally, though I'm not super enthused actually about any of our left back situation right now. It feels very dire to me.
I don't think you can keep him and Reese on the team, is where I'm at. And if you're going to keep one, the answer is pretty obvious which one you'd keep. And, this is our third straight season of both of them missing a majority of the games, if not 90% of the games. He didn't look super convincing when he was in at left back last season as it was. And I think it's probably just time to move on. I think there is still some value in him, and I think he is a wonderful representative for the club. I think he has been a wonderful player, but he's really a left wing back, and that's not the way that Maresca is going to play at all. From a profile of player, Kukurea fits the system better, and I think he's largely been healthier as well. So you look at your options here. I don't think there's any doubt we go in for a left back this season. I think that's going to be one of the priority transfer targets. And I think we wave a fond farewell to Ben Chilwell, who has been a wonderful contributor to the team when healthy, but we are not in a when healthy mode anymore. We are in a we need to have healthy players for 70 matches mode.
Yeah, again, I'm just gonna go again and say I want to keep, like, from an attacking threat. I think in possession he's phenomenal. He can defend like hell as well. He's there. Obviously, the minutes are the big up in the air. You got to get the medical department figured out. He shouldn't be continuously getting re-injured. When he's at Leicester, he was playing 1,800, 3,200, 2,300 minutes. Like he's in it, right? He had the legs. Something has gone wrong, and they got to assess. Obviously, if they don't think he can be healthy again, then you obviously have to cut your losses and move on. It's the worst when athletes like have the fall from grace, which is from recurring injuries. Like there's nothing worse than that, especially for Ben Chilwell, who's come out and talked about his struggles and his challenges as well. Like you want to see him get back to it, and it just might be a longer journey for him.
We love him too. I like he's a great guy. Like it's this one was hard for me to put in. Like, but I just don't. You're trying to be pragmatic as well as like analyze system. He's much more outside wing, run in behind, like creates. That's just not the way that Maresca plays. So I just don't think that's going to be a great fit for him.
All right, next up is Trevo Chalobah, the The people have said a keep at 87%. This is Trevor, who almost went to Bayern
Wow.
Munich, of all places. Look, I'm a bit different from you two guys. You're calling him CB1, number one center back that we have. I feel differently, but I guess Dan, I'll let you go ahead and tee up your thoughts on Trevo.
He covers multiple positions. I mean, in a pinch, you could actually play him as a defensive mid if you really wanted to. That is actually super interesting under
Hmm.
Maresca. Very, very interesting. He can play as right back. So you talk about that right back cover that you need. Not only could you have Reece James Malagusto, but you also could have Trev Chalobah as well. I think that, he does have injury knock concerns. And so that's probably the only thing that would give me some pause. But if he's going to go for 25 million pounds to another team, particularly in the Premier League, like someone like Manchester United, who are getting linked to him pretty heavily, that is a dumb move for two reasons. You're strengthening a team that's been in and around your position on the table and making them better. Solidifying their defense, and then you're taking away a positive asset that's helping you become better defensively. To me, it would be a dumb move to sell him, and I have other players in our team that I would look to sell or move on first, even on lower profit, to try to get this done. And that's kind of where I'm at, Nick. You're going to spend more to replace him over the lifetime of a contract, and it's very short termism.
All those things you said are accurate. I'm really intrigued about like the step up into defensive midfield with him because like he's proven himself as a passer. I think passing is going to be absolutely critical for the possession based system that Maresca plays. It'll also mean that we just have more control in games. And when he was playing for Tuchel, like that was the MO, right? Like limit the other team's ability to hurt you. Like he played really well as a right center back in that system. And so I'm really intrigued by him. I believe the club will sell him. I believe they will do that. Thus, I put a trophy in our script for the stupid award. So this will be the stupid award. This will be absolutely something that happens. They've proven that time and time again. We'll look like idiots for sure. But if you do keep him, Brandon, I think right now as it stands, we'll go through some of the other players. I think he is CB number one, and I think that he is a guy that enters the preseason with a ton of momentum
I
behind
mean,
him.
maybe on the right side, I still have Levi
Yeah,
more,
yeah, on the right.
more crucial than Trevo right now. But like, I'm going to bet Trevo over DCC right now, which we'll get into in some of the other situations. But Dan, let's not confuse it. Man United center backs have Lindelof, Harry Maguire, Lissandro Martinez, like Johnny Evans. They are pretty shocking. Like even I'd like to think we have a better backline group right now than they do.
Well, Trev though going there
Well,
immediately
I
makes them a
agree.
better
I agree.
defensive unit,
But
and that's more my point, is that he would solidify their defense because they're also going to most likely go to add one or two more defenders, because you're right, they are not a
yeah,
comprehensive
but I think your
defensive
point
unit.
was like, oh, they're a good side. We don't want to strengthen them. Like he's not going to Bayern, right? Like he's not going to Man City, some things like that.
Well,
That's all I'm hedging against.
okay,
But
that's fine.
hey, the next one that we do have is Benoit. So good old baddie here. 79% said keep, which I was kind of surprised by this, especially with look, a lot of people can be pretty emotional. He didn't have a great season. And as we're trying to build out this back line, obviously he's left footed, which is a benefit for him and something that, I thought about. But Nick, it's hard to think what would be the best thing for Benoit coming out of the horror injury and poor performance season that he had.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a lock starter. You know, for me, it's Trev and Levi are your center backs. Like that's just the way the season should start. I think they're the two most talented center backs that we have. Again, huge asterisk because Fofana is a wild card to me. We'll talk about that in a second. But as backups go, as a like for like with Levi, like he's pretty damn close. And I do think that in this like slower, more controlled style of play where it's not so back and forth, like again, I like the back and forth as a person, as a viewer of football, but like in the slower, more controlled style with his ability to unlock defenses with long balls and his distribution's pretty decent. Like I think it could be an okay season for him, even if he does back up Levi, because there should be enough matches to go around to get some rotation in. Den.
Yeah, I mean, he featured in 33 appearances last season, or past in the 1.5, right? Because he came in as a winter transfer,
Yep.
and he's contracted through 29-30. So he's featured for 2,600 minutes at Chelsea. Like, he had some really rough, rough performances last season. And again, our whole defense was one of the worst we've seen in Chelsea in the Premier League ever. So I think, if you grade everybody equally, that like the defense has struggled, you look at him and say, hey, this is an opportunity to have a bounce back year. You're not likely one of our top 2 to 3 defenders right now. So let's think about how we rotate you in and almost rehabilitate you within this side. And I feel like there is enough goodness there that I feel like he's worth keeping as a part of our defensive unit to see what you can get out of him this season, and then determine what you might do next season. But I know, BB, you're the oddball here, because we're keeping him, and you're saying let's get some confidence back with a
Yeah, loan
loan.
him, like maybe let him go somewhere to build up because he's still young. Benoit is 23, right? So he's younger than Disasi, younger than Trev, younger than a lot of this group. So he was kind of thrown into the fire. Had a pretty good first season, bad second season with I think only 16 matches played for the guy. So I it just the other thing is, do we have the time to rehab someone? I hate to put it in those terms, but like we are on under immense pressure to continue to grow and do better. And so I don't know if we have that. Now, granted, the extra matches will always help with minutes around, but the only thing that I was interested in was his left foot in terms of like squad depth and having two left-footed center backs. But as I kind of just looked at it, I felt like that would be the better play for him. So I don't know. We'll see. I think he'd be a little bit more open to it than some of the other players too, is what I'm trying to play the football manager in my head right now and see what his response might be. So I don't know. All right. Let's take our last ad break. When we get back, going to Malo Gusto, one of our top performers of the season. So thank you to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. Okay, you want to see a 100%? We got it. Malo Gusto with our first 100%. Not even Reece James was 100%. 99.8% technically. I'm rounding up Dan. Shrewd business on this one. Ended up being so clutch for us. Obviously had the early red card. Had a little bit of a maybe adaptation period, but over the long run of the season, we were a worse team without Malo Gusto out there.
37 matches played, 26 starts, 2,500 minutes, and 9 assists in in 3 competitions. I mean, this is a phenomenal first season at Chelsea for a 20-year-old player who previously had only ever hit 2,300 minutes in all competitions and a career high of 5 assists in a season. So, you know, in a season full of lows and highs, more lows than highs, Malagusto was an absolute shining star amongst the constellation of goodness for Chelsea. And yeah, very much a keep. And he's going to continue to feature a ton next season.
Yeah, there's an argument. I think Ben Jacobs made this argument in our Maresca breaking news special that we recorded. There's an argument to be made that he might fit Maresca's system better than Reece James. So I don't know. I don't know if he would start over Reece James if both are healthy. That's not what I'm saying, but it could be a really great system fit. There's also, depending on how confident you are in Reese's health, the opportunity that he did play left back a little bit last year. So if you're looking for squad flexibility and depth, and you're looking to get both of these incredibly talented fullbacks on the field at the same time, maybe you usher him over to the left side. I'm not 100% sure how that would work with the inverted style of play and all that sort of stuff that he's going to want to run with. But man, what a fun player. We could tell in preseason, Brandon, how special he was going to be. And you're like, oof, this was of all the buys, and there have been some gems and a lot of misses. This was a
You
gem
look at
buy.
like his attitude. Like he looks at every time an attacker, comes into his space, like they're trying to, you know, steal his dinner. Like he is on guard. He is up for the challenge and he loves it. Like there's another thing we talk about, like when we were playing, is like, do you love the art of defending? Malo Gusto loves the art of defending, and he's added that ability to get forward as well. And I think that's what's great. Like Danny Alves, right? Legendary outside back. He was more known for his ability in attack, right? Like he would push someone up so that they couldn't be a threat on the other side. Malo Gusto can do both. And I think that's what's really special about him. And again, 20 is only going to get better. So, look, he's our highest rated player in part one at 99.8%, which is massive and good for him on his debut season. It wasn't an easy season, and he definitely came out like a couple others with their head absolutely held high. So, super easy. On the other side of the pitch is Mark Cucurella. Interesting in this one, he actually, Cucurella only, and I say only, had 20, 23, 21 appearances this season. 20, final answer. And that's because at the beginning of the season, Levi Colwill was playing left back, right? Even Ben Chilwell was pushed up. It wasn't until towards the end of the season Cucurella finally started to get a run in his position under Poch. 64% said keep, 35 said sell. Nick, he's been a lightning rod of a player ever since he joined from Brighton in the Graham Potter days.
You could make an argument that no player has benefited from Maresca being signed as manager more than Marco Correa. You saw the inversion that he did at the end of last season and how that benefited not only the team, but his own prospects. You saw him step up too. I mean, to be fair to him, he did step up and play better in the last 10 or so matches of the season when we did need that cover. And, he's on the books for a long time. So I think, if you were looking to make a sale, like perhaps one Dan is, then maybe your best chance is that he has just a blinder of a Euros for Spain, and someone does the thing that you should absolutely not do, which is buy off of an international tournament.
It is. I don't. So here's the thing.
I'm
I would sell
keeping, by the
him.
way, just a
I would
note.
sell him. I just, again, I don't feel like there's going to be a market with the offer that you need to actually wipe his value off the books. Right now, you're looking at dollars, 36.4 million left in book value on his transfer fee. And so, look, maybe that's the one that you say, hey, we're going to take the hit on this one and we're going to, get a $10 million sponsorship deal. And that's going to cover a part of this for us. While we're also spending 10 million pounds to get Maresca from Leicester. Like, again, very interesting uses of money over the last 24 months at Chelsea Football Club. This is one, though, I think positionally, he is still an absolute nightmare at times in the Premier League. And I think, yes, he could be absolutely fun to watch in Maresca's system. I think he could also, on the flip side, be absolutely tragic. And I think that you're going to go buy a left back anyway, who's going to start ahead of Ben Chilwell and ahead of Marco Correa. So if that is the case, I would look to move him on. But that is my suggestion here.
Dan's optimistic with the
Yeah.
spending this summer, baby. That's
For
that's
sure.
what
And the
he's
ability to sell as if we didn't sell 40 players last season. Look, I'm going to keep.
We've
Look,
shown we can
I'll
get it
get to kind
done.
of my assessment and kind of what my plan is, but I'm very much on the fence with him. But I ended up going to keep, and like I said, I'll kind of give you guys my overarching thought of how the club are going to approach this season, and it'll be very different to the last couple. So I can understand why he is as reactionary as he is. I don't. Besides Ben Chilwell, who had a big split, we haven't really seen another player. Kind of divide opinion like that. So, very much understand on that one. But the second highest rated player in this section is Levi Colwill at 99.2%. Absolutely keep. The only thing that knocked him out, from is the injury, right? It's just the one thing that really slowed down what such a good season he's having. 23 matches played, 1,800 minutes. He had the goal, had an assist, was a locked on starter, whether it was left center back or left back, Nick. So, I mean, it's pretty clear cut and it's overwhelming from the fans. If anything, I think I put in my awards. I was surprised he is done as well as he did. Again, was in the championship 2 years ago, and now he's challenging for European places.
Yeah, I mean, absolute keep. probably CB2 for me, verging on CB1. Out of last year, I think he really needs to work on his positioning and communication with whoever he's playing with. I think those were gaps at times that we saw from his play. But his passing range should be absolutely electric in this system, especially if you're going to be required to occasionally try and break down a low block through a long ball. Like, he is more than capable of that sort of stuff. Additionally, when Kukurea gets tucked in, he's able to flex out and is athletic enough to fill in that space that is being vacated intentionally. So he's gonna be able to flex in and out there too. I think this is a big season for Levi Colwell, and just knock on wood, Dan, that he has no injuries and is able to play to his absolute top level.
Yeah. It is a clean sweep with the keeps for
Yeah,
Levi Colon next
for
season.
sure. I mean, if anything, I'm just excited for him to get healthy and get back so we can see him doing what he does best. Right. Axel Disasi, another newcomer this season in 51% sell. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but I believe he's the first one that has a majority of the listeners saying sell. 47% saying keep, a small portion on loan. I said keep, which was the opposite of you two. You're siding with the listeners. I can understand both sides on this, but
He's
Dan, how are you framing Axel Disasi?
Yeah, I'll say he's first outfield player because Sanchez had 85% and then Kepa had 95. So just in terms of players who are not goalkeepers, best athletes on the pitch, when you look at Axel Disasi, he, to me, again, I don't know if there's a market for him. If you can find a partner, you should, because I think he has become either the third, fourth, or fifth choice center back in this side very, very quickly. Because it's, in my mind, Trev Chalobah, Levi Colwell, Tonson's coming in, and most likely is somewhere in the 2 to 3 range. And then you have Badia Shield, so that's four. So now he's fifth. He's your fifth choice center back. And he had some hot matches last season. He had a bunch of cold matches last season. And I think it's not as expensive as others in terms of getting off the books. Likely 21 million is enough to clear out his book value. So if that's the case, I would love to see if you can find a deal to make it happen, even if it's one of those loan obligation to buy in a future year. I mean, it does take up potentially an international loan spot to do it, but this is one I would try to move on because I just don't think he is your starter. I mean, he was a starter last season and he played because people were injured throughout the course of the season, Nick, as you are also a sell on him as well. But I
Yeah.
think this season he likely sees less minutes, and you should try to find a pathway to get him someplace else.
Yeah, mine's more about not being a system fit. I just don't see him as this sort of like dynamic ball playing center back. I think at times he was caught out positionally last year as well, and that makes me worried because if we do lose the ball in this like high possession system, Brandon, and we are playing as far up as we are, that could just be a disaster. So it's less about him and it's more about the way the club is evolving, I think, and that's a sell for me.
I'm gonna try to save this question for later, but you've prompted me on something, and I totally get where you're coming from. And so, like, I think it'll be really interesting, just who the club decide are surplus to Maresca and in things. Next up is West Fafana. It's 93% keep. People want to see it, and I think partially, Nick, because you want to be reminded of the swag that West Fofana has. Like, he's got a little bit of Rudiger in him. When a guy's running at him, like, he will do a little bit of high step in on his way back. Like, he has so much confidence. He's hilarious. I remember I was very soft on West Fofana when he was joining, and Ollie Glanville just took me to the cleaners and told me how good he is. And in his first season, I absolutely fell in love with him. So I'm a hard keep.
I'm not a hard keep. I'll be honest. Like, I know Seb C, Ollie, everyone on Twitter is going to be at my door with torches and pitchforks and all sorts of stuff. He's played 24 matches in 4 years, guys. Like, if I'm already upset about Reese's playing time, Reese has played like 20 more matches than he has. Like, this is insane that this guy got it was 70 million pound buy and he's played 15 matches for Chelsea Football Club. I mean, Like when he played, did he look okay? Sure. Did he look perfect? No. Does he have max potential in this system? Yes. That's the thing that's going to keep people around. I don't think you're getting an offer. This is very much like one of Dan's previous ones. I think it was Kukurea, where it's like, I don't think there's ever an offer that comes in that's at a valuation that makes sense to sell him. But in my world, the best ability is availability, and he's just not simply available at all. The best hope I have for him, Dan, is that he stays healthy. He's rotated. He's not being asked to play 70 matches next season, because that is just such a like illogical leap from where he is right now. But I am seriously, seriously worried about West Fafana, not because of talent, but because his body just simply has not responded.
Yeah, it to me it's a keep because I think if he has a good season, he restores the majority of his value. And you would be selling underneath the market value for a center
By a
back with
lot.
his potential if you were trying to get him out. And so I think that's the thing where he to me is most likely not penciled in as a day one starter right now. Again, there could be changes to that based upon who comes in and who goes, but I think he is someone I would bet on more from a potential standpoint than someone like Axel Disasi, right? Like I would sell Axel Disasi if I could and keep West Fafana on the hopes
Yep.
that West comes good on the promise this coming season.
Yep.
All right. Well, next we've got.
So, sorry to harsh your
You're
vibe on
not
that
going to
one,
be able
Brendan, but
to be quite honest. I get it. You're not
I'm
wrong.
worried.
I just look. His ceiling is so fantastic that I want to see him again, and
Yeah.
for sure.
Ultimate risk reward
For
player
sure.
at Chelsea right now.
Ian Matson is next up with 61% sell. And I think this is sell with love, right? We're all there. We saw him in preseason. It was so fun. We wanted him to play. Poch didn't see him in that position. He's gone on to Dortmund to reach the Champions League final. The market should be right for him, Dan. It is one of those things where, like, we are releasing him to go be the amazing player he is because it unfortunately didn't work out. But we can always say he's Cobham raised and be super proud of that.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see him win the Champions League,
I
but
know.
you know, we also made money by and with Eden Hazard and Kepa winning the Champions League, or at least Real Madrid winning, and then the clauses in those contracts kind of hitting. So, yay for that. We're gonna go buy a left back, and it's gonna feel stupid to say that we're selling a left back and then we're out to go buy one. It seems as if there's just not I'm making the decision that you only can keep so many of the Chelsea homegrown players this summer. And if I'm keeping one or two of them, my ranking is Chalobah and Gallagher. And so in my mind, then Matson becomes the casualty there, unfortunately. And so, you know, he's going to have a good market. I think you're going to be able to get an amount for him, probably similar to the amount that you were looking to sell Trev Chalobah for. And if that's the case, I view that as more important to keep Chalobah than Matson.
Yeah, this is another
Tough one.
award for me, the stupid award. I think this one already looks stupid with how he played at Dortmund, and I think he actually played really well in the Champions League final too. Um, this will likely look worse with time as well, so this is why the award has been put down there. But yeah, I just don't see a way he comes back after all the talk and the release clause being said. It just doesn't seem like
All
that's
right.
going to
And then
happen.
the last one, more of a formality here, Lewis Hall. 82% saying sell, which, yeah, I mean, I will say if the club wanted Lewis Hall to be sold, they did a good job, Nick, of setting up the contract with Newcastle to make the um, criteria very achievable. Maybe we got a little bit lucky that they also had defensive injuries throughout the entire season, which means he played more than maybe they thought of. But I don't think Newcastle are upset that they're going to be getting Lewis Hall.
No, another award here. This one will really hurt in a year or two. I think he will thrive at Newcastle, and I think especially given the Maresca appointment, like this one will potentially look really silly. His passing range is really good, and we've seen him be able to take on the defensive side as well. I have already written this one off in my brain, so I'm not as emotional about it as I was this time last year. But yeah, Lewis Hall's a really, really good footballer.
I'm was one of the biggest fans, and I think maybe his height will limit him at left back. But again, super scrappy Dan, hardworking kid. Loved it. Loved the time we had with him.
Yeah, he actually would have been even more interesting in Maresca's system as a left
Hmm.
back than Marc Cucurella, but you've made a decision and now you have to live with it. So
Yep.
All
enjoy.
right. Well, let's go ahead and tally up where we're at. So, squad so far. Remember, this is only part one. We got part two coming in a couple of days. So, lock in for that one. But, Nick, let's go starting with your goalkeepers, your right backs, your center backs, and your left backs. And then, kind of, what are the holes that you still have in the back line?
Yeah, so goalkeeper again. I haven't given up on Petro as number one, but expect a new transfer to come in. So that's number one and two sorted there. Betts as your perfect number three. Right back, I have not split the number one, or I have split the number one between Reece James and Malo Gusto. I have not put a number two there. I think they are both quality players who could absolutely beat each other out for the role. That's how confident I am in Malo Gusto. Center backs, Trev Chalobah, Levi Colwill, Benoit Badiashile, Wes Fofana, and then Adarabioyo, who comes in. That's Tosin Adarabioyo for those who are playing along at home from Fulham. And then left back, I've bid farewell to Ben Chilwell. I've put Mark Cucurella as my number one for this moment. And then number two is a new transfer slash academy player coming in there. So basically, I have holes at goalkeeper and at left back. I do not believe that Chelsea is going to go find a first choice left back. I think we're going
Mm.
to go find a backup left back, partly because we need to spend money in other places that will be coming up soon. So I think if you can go find yourself a bargain backup that can do some of the Cucurella things better, but maybe a younger profile who could eventually take over for him. That would be the ideal scenario for me. I just don't think you're getting rid of Cucurella this season. I think we have a whole lot of Cucurella in our upcoming future.
Well, it might drive some people cuckoo to have that much Cucurella in their lives, but not me under the lineup that I've put together. So again, going for the chaos choice here of Sanchez and Bettinelli with a new number one keeper coming in at the back. Right backs of Reece James and Malo Gusto, center backs of Chalobah, Colwell, Tosin the Giant. I'm going to keep that one alive. Badiashile and West Fofana, and then Chilwell left back. So that would mean two vacancies, a goalkeeper and a left back that need to be filled with the assumption that Tosin gets completed and signed beyond just the here we go tweet from Fabrizio Romano by time of recording or release. Right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of overlap with Nick for me on this, but Petrovic and Betts, James Gusto, Chalobah, Colwell, Disasi, Fofana, and Adarabio, whatever. Because look, he's coming.
Adarabioyo.
Perfect.
Let me hit you with that one.
That's definitely the phonetic pronunciation. Chilwell and Cucurella. I'm keeping my vacancies. I have for sure a goalkeeper, but I'm also thinking about that left back spot. But then again, I go back to why wouldn't we just have an academy player fill in? So I'm like super torn on that. So I'm going to hold on two vacancies right there, in play from there. So yeah, look, a lot covered in this one. I think there's going to be a lot of conversation around this. So again, hit us up on social media. The best place is in Discord, like I said, where the majority of our community is hanging out, in a much quieter, more friendly version of social media. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm excited to get into part two. Again, this will be coming out a couple days later. We're going to be going after the midfielders, attackers slash strikers as well. So a lot to dig into that one. But anyways, Chelsea fans, hope you've been enjoying the summer content. This is, while the season's over, we do enjoy putting on this summer stuff, Nick. I know this is kind of one of the fun run right after the season to do the end of season rewards and keep so loan. So I hope everyone's enjoying it like we are.
Yeah, again, this is our chance to play sporting director, and I think there are a lot of people out there thinking, why don't you give old Nick Verlaney a hack at the job, see what he does? And so far, that's what I've done. So very, very excited to get into midfielders and attackers. I think there's going to be some really interesting discussion for that one. So yeah, stay tuned because I think some of the more interesting profiles near the top of the
All
pitch.
right. Well, look, much, much more coming at you. Part two very, very soon. So until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Get the blue flag flying high.